Hi guys, so you might have seen on wine lists near you this new category of wine that sort of started to pop up a little bit, which is commonly known as orange wine or skin contact wine, skinsy wine. That is kind of a really fun thing that has been essentially rediscovered. I say new, but it's actually a really ancient way of making wine. And it's really fun. I think that a lot of modern winemakers are kind of getting back to that. It's part of that natural wine movement that's happening, which doesn't really have an exact sort of definition, but essentially is just a lot of producers moving away from a more kind of commercial approach to winemaking, where they're using a lot of additives and filtering a lot, and winemakers are really just letting the grapes kind of speak for themselves. So essentially, skin contact wine is the most technically accurate way of describing it. It often gets called orange wine because of its color, but no oranges are harmed in the making of this wine. It is all just grapes. And basically what it means is, whereas, with red wine, it gets all that color from the grape skins. That's why it has kind of tannin and is, a really nice red color. White wine, it doesn't stay on the skins at all, so it just gets pressed and drained right off, and that's why it's nice and clear. In fact, a lot of wines that you know as white wines, for instance, Pinot Grigio, is actually a kind of reddish grape, but it just doesn't have any contact with that outside skin, and the inside flesh is still white, and so it stays nice and pristine white when it gets into your bottle. Orange wine is a little bit in the middle, so it's kind of done in the style of a white wine, but they do leave it on skins for a little while. For, each producer, that'll vary. Sometimes it's literally a few hours, and sometimes it can be weeks. Get like a bit more texture, often kind of like a nice citrusy sort of pithiness, and just generally a really interesting category. So I thought I'd taste a few to give you a kind of a show of the different colors and flavors that you can expect from this style. So first of all, this is a really fun brand that my friend actually came up with, called Hey Tomorrow. So it's really good quality boxed wine. I use it a lot at home because if you just want a glass, you don't want to open a whole bottle and then it go to waste. This stays really nice and fresh for a long time. And this one is a Vermentino and Moscato Giallo blend. So some little Italian grape varietals here, but grown here in Australia. It's actually made by the Chalmers family, which are a family of winemakers who actually introduced a lot of Italian grapes to Australia. So now you see a lot of Sangiovese, Fiano, Vermentino, and things like that getting grown here. And that is all thanks to these guys. Next up, we have the Blind Corner Orange, which is literally called orange and kind of more of that actual classic orange color that you might expect. This one is a little kind of Chenin Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc, and Pinot Grigio, I think. Little blend here as well. And last but not least, the MDI Friulano. So Friulano is again an Italian grape grown in the region of Friuli in Italy. But once again, this is actually one that we've imported into Australia. It's quite fun that we've seen this rise in Italian varietals being grown here, because actually if you think about the climate of kind of southern Italy compared to Australia, that makes a lot more sense. These grapes don't need as much water. They're pretty used to really like high heats and kind of droughts and things like that. Whereas French grapes do tend to be a little bit more precious. They're used to a bit more rain. So there does tend to have to be a lot of irrigation to grow things like Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So given the water is a bit of a scarcity in Australia sometimes, kind of moving into these hardier grape varietals is quite a good idea for the environment. So you can see with our little Vermentino here, it's really just more cloudy. I wouldn't really call that orange. It's, I guess, a slightly off-white, but you can see, it's obviously got a nice amount of texture there, and that little bit of cloudiness from the grape skin. And it's just so kind of floral and perfumed, almost like a bit of a Turkish delight sort of perfume coming through there. Really nice, I think, in the middle of the afternoon in the park, if that's legal where you are. I don't want anyone to get into trouble for drinking in public. And that's like a perfect example of what I love about these wines, because it has all that stone fruit, all that lovely floral perfume that you would expect from a white wine, but just with a bit more texture. It would definitely hold up to a lot of food. Just a little bit more structure in general. So I think it's a good middle ground there, where obviously if the weather's warm or you just don't feel like a red, something like this has enough kind of body behind it without kind of tipping into any kind of, you know, red berries or more aged flavors as well. Then your little blind corner. Really, really citrusy. This almost does actually smell like oranges, which is quite funny. So yeah, lots of that kind of like pithy citrus, like citrus skin sort of flavor that really makes your mouth water and kind of gives it a bit more grip as well than you would expect from a white wine in general. And again, more of that kind of actual orange color that you might expect when you hear the nickname orange. And then getting into our Friulano, this one almost goes like a kind of amber, like golden honey color, which I really like. And Friulano is generally just a much kind of heavier grape. It's almost akin to a Chardonnay in terms of having, or, you know, when Chardonnays are kind of oaked, it's a lot of ripe stone fruit flavors with almost like a little kind of nuttiness. So yeah, quite toasty on the nose actually. Really round and rich, has, yeah, toasty, nutty, almost like a kind of ginger snap kind of biscuit element to it there, which is really yum. That's absolutely one of my favorite wines at the moment. I'm a little bit obsessed with it. So there we go, orange wine. So now you know.